Hi, this is Bruce Gray with Team SIG, Operation Specific Training and Gray Guns Incorporated. We're here today at the SIG Sauer Academy Range out at Area 51 to talk to you a little bit about angular error as it relates to practical handgun marksmanship. Much is made about aiming. How many times have you had your instructor tell you, aim harder, watch the front sight, see the sights? I totally agree with all that, but sometimes I think the information we get from the sights may be a little bit different, or the benefit from that information a little different than what we expect it to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the orange front sight on my somewhat elaborately colored P320 SIG Sauer Yankee gun that I've been shooting in NRA action competition, such that it has fairly large adjustable sights on top of the slide, which is to comply with NRA action pistol rules. Anyway, I'm going to take the orange dot on my fiber optic front sight and I'm going to lean it over to the left side of the notch and then to the right side of the notch of my rear sight at 15 yards here, and hopefully make some pretty good shots to give us an idea of what the total extreme spread of that much angular error in the sight picture would be from center. Once I've done that, we'll kind of talk a little bit about what that actually is telling us relative to trigger management. So here we go. All right, there's a central spot on that target. I think it's pink. I'm going to put the front sight on that spot, but again, I'm going to lean the sight over in the notch, one side or the other, to the full value of about the diameter of that dot, just to see what the dispersion at 15 yards here is. I'm going to do that now for about 3 shots for each. We can see on the target that we've got a spread just about the width of the A zone at 15 yards, and that's again with the fairly extreme amount of deviation of the sight within this notch, all the way to the full value of the diameter of the orange dot on one side and the other within that notch, to give us about a roughly 6.5–7 inch spread at 15 yards. But even still, it's still on the target. Point being that when we see gross misses and gross errors, very often it's not because we're not aiming per se, it's not because the aiming is deficient such that we would actually see that much error on the target. We'll demonstrate that in a second, but largely because we're not getting the right information off of our sights. I don't think I can shoot doubles like that every day. Kind of a lucky thing, I suppose, or maybe unlucky if it was too good. There's only one time, I got to say as an aside, in my 42 years of shooting competition, that I've ever truly had a double that was called as a miss. And it's funny because every time you turn around at some IPSC match or USPSA match somewhere, somebody's calling a double. That, I've only seen it once, and it happened to me. Anyway, neither here nor there. Obviously, if this is my aiming spot, that's going to look grossly wrong to me if I were actually aiming with aligned sights, trying to hit this target at, say, 15 yards. My brain is not going to accept a sight picture that is that far off to be able to get that kind of deviation on the target. But what it will accept is looking through the sights and not getting information about the quality of my trigger control from the sights. I think a large part of why we aim, therefore, is not so much to find the center of the target, because we can do that, but if we're not coming back and seeing the sights pretty sharply, particularly when we're trying to shoot precisely, for really making quality hits, we're not getting information from the sights that tells us that our trigger control is good enough to actually do the job. Recently, I was shooting a lot of NRA competition with this pistol right here, and I found that my trigger control is not really what it used to be. I've kind of lost a step, and I'm working on that really hard. What I would see is sometimes the sight's kind of doing some really funny stuff as I'm trying not to basically jerk the crap out of the trigger, and found myself actually struggling a little bit with it, but at least I was getting that information off the sights, which told me I was seeing them clearly. Without that, I have no hope of being able to call my shots at all. There's 3 things you really need to be able to do, in my opinion, to shoot really well, particularly if we're talking about shooting precisely at speed. The first is we need to be able to prep the trigger and roll through that shot. The second thing we need to be able to do is see the sights well enough that when the shot breaks, as an active, interested observer in that process, that we can call the shot. It's calling the shot that keeps us connected with that process without actually having us come in and consciously dominate and control that process and even screw it up for us more. So, as long as you're seeing the sights well enough to see your errors, you're seeing the sights well enough to correct them. And that's really, I think, the principal purpose of aiming hard when you're shooting at speed, trying to do something dynamic.